Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a real giant of history, the Roman Empire. We're going to break down how it managed to rise from absolute chaos, how that huge imperial machine actually worked, and maybe most importantly, why we're all, believe it or not, still living in its shadow long after it fell.
The historian Cassius Style, he's the one who came up with this line. It's just so powerful, right? He was talking about the start of Rome's long, slow decline. But here's the thing, to really get what he meant by the rust and iron, we've got to first understand the incredible kingdom of gold that it used to be.
All right, so from chaos to empire. How did this whole thing even start? Well, it wasn't some grand, glorious moment. Nope. The empire was actually born from a solid century of brutal, non-stop chaos that just completely shredded the old Roman Republic. Seriously, the last years of the Republic were an absolute bloodbath. When they assassinated Julius Caesar, you'd think that would fix things, right? Wrong. It just kicked off another round of vicious civil wars. You had all these powerful men just battling it out for control, until finally one guy came out on top. And that was Caesar's adopted son, Octavian. He crushes his last big rivals, Mark Antony and Cleopatra. And by 27 BCE, the Senate is so desperate for peace, they basically hand him the keys, giving him the new title of Augustus. And just like that, the Republic was gone. The Roman Empire had its very first emperor. And what came next was something that generations before could have only dreamed of. Peace. We call it the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. And we're talking about 200 years of stability and prosperity all across the Mediterranean. All of it held together by this brand new imperial system. Okay, on to the imperial machine. This is a big question, isn't it? How did this thing actually work? How on earth did one guy, with a pretty small administration, manage to hold this massive, diverse territory together for centuries on end?
Well, at the absolute heart of it all was the Roman army. But what's really mind-blowing is the number you see here, 30. For over 300 years, the entire empire, from Britain all the way to Syria, was controlled by only about 30 legions. That is a shockingly small force for the amount of land they had to cover. It tells you everything you need to know. Roman power wasn't about huge numbers, it was all about efficiency. And get this, the army did way more than just fight. It was like the ultimate multi-tool. Of course, they conquered new lands and they patrolled the borders, but they were also the empire's #1 engineering crew. These soldiers were the ones building those famous Roman roads, the incredible aqueducts, and the forts that would eventually become major cities. They were literally building the empire from the ground up. And sitting at the very top of this whole structure, the emperor. And he wasn't just the king. Think of it more like he was this incredible concentration of power that the old republic would have never allowed. He was the supreme military commander, the head of the state religion, the final legal authority. He held all the cards: military, religion, law, the whole shebang. So let's talk about a world of Romans. What was it actually like to live in this empire? For the millions and millions of people under Roman rule. Well, the empire was unbelievably diverse, and honestly, your life story really depended on who you were and where you stood in the social pecking order.
Yeah, Roman society was divided, and not just by wealth, but by law. It was incredibly stark. If you were one of the honestioras, that literally means the more honorable, the elites, you might get a slap on the wrist, a fine for a crime. But if you were a humilior, one of the more humble, the common folk, you could be whipped, tortured, or even crucified for the very same crime. It's crazy. Your status literally determined how the law treated you.
And then, at the very bottom, beneath everyone else, was the massive population of enslaved people. This scale here is just staggering. Think about this. At its peak, over a third, 35% of the entire population of Italy was enslaved. They were legally property, nothing more, and they were the engine fueling the economy, from the brutal work in the mines to serving in the homes of the rich.
But here's where Roman society gets really surprising and, frankly, a bit complicated. Unlike in a lot of other slaveholding cultures, if you were an enslaved person who was free, you became a libertinus, you could become a full Roman citizen. Now, you couldn't run for the highest offices, but you could get incredibly rich. And here's the real kicker. Your kids were born completely free, with all the rights of any other Roman citizen. That's a level of social mobility that's pretty wild for the ancient world.
And what about Roman women? Well, freeborn women had a pretty unique status too. Okay, so they couldn't vote or hold public office, but they were citizens. And this is huge. During the imperial period, most women actually controlled their own property even after getting married. They could run businesses, inherit wealth right alongside their brothers, and you can bet they had a ton of influence behind the scenes.
All right, let's look at the engine of the empire. What fueled this whole gigantic, complex society for so many centuries? The answer, really, is its economy. It was sophisticated, it was integrated, and it was on a scale the ancient world had just never seen before.
I mean, just try to wrap your head around the scale here. At its absolute peak, under the Emperor Trajan, we're talking about 5 million square kilometers. The population was over 70 million people. That's more than 20%, 1/5 of the entire world's population at the time, all living inside one single unified economic system. That's just massive.
So how'd they pay for it all? Mostly, how'd they pay for that army? Well, taxes, of course. Rome had a really complex tax system. But what might surprise you is how low the rates often were. Your main direct taxes on people and land were usually just somewhere between 2 and 5%. Then they'd add on some other indirect taxes for things like customs and inheritance.
And here's the crucial piece of the puzzle. You've got one currency, whether you're in Britain or Egypt. You've got the Roman Navy keeping the seas safe from pirates. What that does is it turns the entire Mediterranean into one giant single market. The Romans had a name for it, Mare Nostrum, our sea. It meant that for the first time, goods, people, and ideas could travel across this huge area safely and easily. It was a total game changer.
So, on to Rome's enduring echo. Okay, technically, the Western Roman Empire officially ended in 476 AD. That's the year the last emperor got the boot. But here's the thing. Did it really fall? In a way, Rome never truly went away. Its legacy is literally woven into the fabric of the world we live in right now. So, if Rome fell, why does it still matter today? That's the key takeaway, right? The political structure, the empire itself might have disappeared in the West, but its ideas, its culture, its systems, they became the bedrock for the next 1,000 years of European history, and, honestly, for the whole world. I mean, just think about it for a second. The languages that over 900 million people speak today, Spanish, French, Italian, they came straight from Latin. Our legal systems, they're packed with Roman ideas about justice. The architecture of our most important buildings, arches, domes, that's all Roman. Christianity became a major world religion in large part because the empire's infrastructure helped it spread. And the very idea of a republic, of a senate, that directly influenced how modern democracies, like the United States, were set up. It's everywhere.
So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. What part of Rome is still alive in your city? Because it's not just something you read about in a history book. Its echo is in the words you speak, the laws that protect you, maybe even the design of the government buildings downtown. So look around. You'll find that the Roman Empire is a lot closer than you think.